Alright, so we have to talk about the Arc Warlock because I see so much hate with people saying it's not good, don't use it. I'm kicking you from my LFG if you're using an Arc Warlock. Some pretty crazy things that I've seen. I know Strand is the hot topic after yesterday's reveals, and I plan to have a few really good videos on Strand for you guys when we get a little closer to Lightfall. And I think Strand will also be a way better subclass than a lot of people think with the Tangles portion of the subclass kits. But let's get back to the Arc Warlock before I go on a huge rabbit trail. All the gameplay you're watching in these Grandmasters is without any combat mods on. This is all the correct subclass with the aspects and fragments and the right exotic. And also a good arc weapon that can actually kill things as well, because this will play into the build a lot. So you do want a really strong arc weapon to secure kills for you, and there are a ton of these in the game, so that's no problem at all. The Arc Warlock is way stronger than I think people give it credit for, and also it has a really good support role as well that people sleep on. So if someone tells you to change off Arc Warlock, just prove them wrong with this build. Unless you're in like a raid encounter and you really need a well of radiance. Now it's all about ionic traces and how we can make the most possible, and the Warlock has 3 things that play into this very strongly. We have 6 different options that can create ionic traces for us, and to put that into perspective for you, we only need 4 ionic traces to refill every single one of our abilities. So even when we're running a Grandmaster solo and with no combat mods, we can keep up our abilities, and the Arc Warlock, between a pulse grenade that jolts and the Arc Souls that are always amped up, there is some serious extra damage being put out. You can also give these Arc Souls to your entire team with infinite healing rifts for a quick heal, and every time we collect an ionic trace, you give your fire team members 10% ability energy to all 3 of their abilities with every single ionic trace you grab. Because remember, what makes an ionic trace so good is it refills all 3 of your abilities when collecting one, not just a single ability. First, every ability we have can create ionic trace. Our grenade is one, obviously, our melee can, and so can our Arc Souls. So 3 different ways to create an ionic trace already, and next, because of a fragment, our arc weapons can create ionic traces. Then if we defeated a jolted target, it can create an ionic trace as well. And the 6th way is if we can defeat a blinded target, which with a second fragment will be blinding these things left and right, that can also create ionic trace. So we literally have 6 different ways to create ionic traces with this build, and like I said, we only need 4 ourselves to keep up our entire ability rotation, and this is with no combat mods. So I think the potential for this in Lightfall moving forward with the new changes to the mod system is going to be really good. If you are new to the channel and find this video helpful or enjoyable, then make sure to hit that subscribe button for me. And thank you so much to all the YouTube members. I really appreciate the extra support. It means the world to me. Oh, and even in the corrupted Grandmaster, this build can put in some serious work and carry a fire team if it needs to be carried. This entire Warlock build starts with the exotic Fallen Sunstar. The perk here is Ionic Conductor. Ionic traces you create move faster and grant you additional ability energy. Nearby allies also gain ability energy when you collect an Ionic trace. Now the moving faster of the Ionic traces is great, it just gets to you quicker, it makes the gameplay loop that much quicker, but your total ability energy gained per Ionic trace, for your grenade it's 25%, melee 25%, and class ability 30%. So our lowest is 25%, obviously if you collect 4 Ionic traces, that's going to get you every single one of your abilities back. But not only that, allies within range get 10% ability energy to all 3 of their abilities as well. So now as you're collecting those 4 or 5 Ionic traces that come back to you, you're giving your teammates 40 or 50% ability energy to every single one of their abilities. And I'm not sure how many people know how strong that is, but if you're running with like a Void Titan that's just popping out barricades and throwing grenades, or maybe a Solar Hunter with Ahamkar's spine on and chucking their grenades and throwing knives, this can be huge to help support your entire team. But on top of that, you're dropping your Rift and giving your entire team Arc Souls that are doing some serious damage. They got that 50% damage buff at the beginning of the season, and it makes them so much better. Even in the Birthplace Grandmaster, they were killing Screebs in one burst for me, and it was so nice not to have to deal with them a lot of the times. So Fallen Sunstar is a top tier exotic when it comes to the Arc Warlock, and I always choose this over Crown of Tempest now because it just does a lot more for you. Now to pair with the Fallen Sunstar and specifically a few fragments within our subclass, you need a strong arc weapon. So I was using Forbearance in the gameplay. I had Ambitious Assassin and Chain Reaction as my 2 perks, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that grenade launcher, but that is a super good grenade launcher you could be using for this. You could go with Salvager Salvo, or even Cold Heart, or maybe the Delicate Tomb fusion rifle, maybe the other trace rifle called Path of Least Resistance. There's a bunch of different options for you, but you just want your arc weapon to be able to kill things, because when it kills things, it's going to create a blinding explosion, and that's just going to feed to killing blinded enemies and feeding us Ionic Traces back in return. So choose a strong arc weapon to go with this build. It can be an arc heavy as well, maybe something like Thunderlord. For the subclass, I would still take Chaos Reach. It got the quicker cooldown, so it's only like a 7-minute super, so you're going to get it back really quickly. Healing Rift, obviously for survivability. Ball Lightning, since it's a ranged melee, you can cast it a little further away. And then Pulse Grenade, I think, is the strongest grenade when it comes to jolting and doing some extra damage for us. For the two aspects, we're going to take Electrostatic Mine, defeating targets with arc abilities. So that means our Arc Soul, our grenade, or our melee will create Ionic Traces for us. And then defeating jolted or blinded targets will defeat Ionic Traces. Our grenade is going to jolt targets, and our weapon is going to blind targets. And then collecting one Ionic Trace makes you amplified. Becoming amplified is important because of our next one, Arc Soul. Cast your Rift to create that Arc Soul that fires at targets in front of you. Allies can pass through this and pick up those Arc Souls. And then our Rift actually recharges faster when allies are near us. But then here at the bottom, while amplified, your Arc Souls are supercharged and gain increased rate of fire. This allows them to deal even more damage quicker, and when you have 3 Arc Souls going on 3 different fire team members, it can be some really fun times. Now the fragments are pretty important here. For the damage resistance, we're taking Spark of Resistance, a 25% damage reduction overall. It actually does help in harder content. I wasn't getting one shot by the Screeb in the birthplace, which was pretty nice. Next, we're going to take Spark of Shock. Your arc grenades jolt targets. This is going to just let our grenades do a ton of damage to all surrounding enemies from that jolting, and then create Ionic Traces for us when we kill those jolted enemies. Next, we're going to take Spark of Discharge. Your arc weapon final blows have a chance to create Ionic Traces. Another way just to create traces, but then this pairs really well with Spark of Beacons. While you are amplified, which were always amplified from Ionic Traces, your arc special weapon final blows create a blinding explosion. That's why you want to choose a strong weapon to pair with this, because you're going to create those blinding explosions all the time. When you blind enemies, that just helps your overall survivability and your team, and then when you kill those enemies, they're going to create Ionic Traces as well. So we just have so many different ways within this build to create Ionic Traces and feed our abilities and our teammates' abilities, and then you're just getting a Rift back quicker by having our fire team members near us. So overall, when it comes to ability uptime, putting out damage, adding damage to your team with the healing rifts and the Arc Souls, and then even throwing in jolting and blinding so often, I was actually very surprised running this build in the Grandmasters, and I couldn't believe I didn't see more Arc Warlocks. I know you should have a Well of Radiance or maybe a Starfire build or something going on, but with the damage reduction and how strong other subclasses are, there's a lot of different viable options that you can choose now, and especially when it's an Arc Burn Strike. Like Arc Burn Strikes, you're doing 25% more damage with everything that you're throwing out is just awesome. For the stats on the build, you want to aim for 100 Resilience, get that Resilience up for damage reduction. I had 100 Discipline in the gameplay, and I also had 60 Recovery. I'm super excited to cover it again in Lightfall and update it with the new mod system, because I do think Arc Warlocks could be very strong. And I hope you guys all liked the Strand reveal that happened earlier. I was pretty pumped for it, and I can't wait to make content for you all on it. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a great rest of your day.